All right. Freilich Chanukah, everyone. I might call them welcome to belated Sichos Haran Shir, being that last night it wasn't in the cards, so today we will go Sichos Haran, and Bezat Hashem will schmooze also a little bit, Mitzvah Hashem, about Chanukah. So just close this. All right. All right, this is something that we already spoke about before, but nevertheless, it's an important thing that we need to talk about. Rabbeinu mentions a Gemara in Maseches Ksubos, Daf Lamed Gimel 33 Amud Beis, being in Kiddush Hashem, that Chazal said, Il malei negdu al Chanyani Mishal Vazar. There's the famous story in the times of the Melech Nebuchadnezzar, Shchik Tamil, that he was by far I don't know if the or one of the, probably the scariest creep of a king in the history. I mean, it's not exactly that Paroi was a saint, slaughtering babies for his bath. But you can already hear in Paroi, it says that the Zohar says that Paroi went and killed the sages of Egypt during Makas Choshen. Right, I mean, right after Makas Choshen, because he was so furious with them for strengthening him in his resolve not to send the people out of Mitzrayim. We see that kind of imperiousness in Nebuchadnezzar. He dreamt a dream, as it is mentioned in Sefer Daniel, and he forgot the dream. But the thing is that he was so shaken by it, he actually had the audacity of calling everybody, his sages, and tell them that he wants to know what's the meaning of his dream. So they told him, tell us what the dream is, and we'll tell you what it means. Now, being that he didn't remember what the dream was, so what did he say? He said, no, that's not the way it's going to go. If I'm going to tell you what the dream is, he's just going to tell me any kind of interpretation. I want you to tell me what the dream was and what it means. And if you know what the dream was, I'll know that you tell me the real interpretation of the dream. It's a nifty trick. So they told him, nobody can do that. So they told him, in the time of Beis Hamikdash, Kohen Gadol had the Urim and the Tumim, so you can find out things like this. Now, so he said Beis Hamikdash was, that efficacious, and you give him an answer to burn it. Okay, now I'm going to burn you all. Mind you, including the Jews, the Jewish sages. In other words, he is pretty loose with that off with their heads syndrome. The Queen of Hearts syndrome, off with their heads. So Nebuchadnezzar in that particular tzir, Daniel, found out Daniel and his three friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, were the four boys that were picked from the Jews to be standing before the king. He wanted the handsomest and the sturdiest of the Jewish children to, stand guard in his palace, and the smartest so they came to the king's palace, and they said that the minister of whatever it is, of the palace, of the one in charge of the food, is supposed to feed them the healthiest food there is, so they grow up, they feel healthier. Now, Daniel and his friends did not want to eat treif or drink yain nesach. So they came to him and told him, why don't you just give us seeds to eat? So he said, I can't do this. He says, because the king will see you don't look as wholesome as all the other kids, so he'll take my head off. So they said to him, let's do a test, okay? Just give us just seeds and water for a few days. And if you see that we don't look that good, then okay, then we'll eat whatever food you give us. But let's just give it a shot. And he said, okay. So they gave them seeds and water. And a few days later, he says that they looked better than all the other children. So from that moment on, he took their food to himself. In other words, all the snails and all the, the filet mignon and all the whatever it is he was eating. He was drinking, all the Chateau Lafite Rothschild and Chateau Petrus, whatever it is, 1958. He was drinking the whole thing. And to them, he just gave them the seeds, and they flourished. By the way, of course, the proponents of no meat use this story as proof that a non-fleischig diet is healthy for you. Of course, there's a shtickle problem with that theory, because if eating seeds is better for you, why is it considered a miracle? That they look better than all the kids? Well, if you're already a believer in a theory, you all spoil it with facts and Jewish questions. Doesn't make sense. It does make sense. Anyhow, they grew up in the house of Nebuchadnezzar. When that episode with the dream happened, Daniel said, why kill everybody? Go to the king, tell him, give me 3 days. And he davened, because Baruch Hu B'Shamayim, they told him, what the dream was and what the meaning was. And he came before the king, and he told him what the dream was, and what the interpretation was. And Nebuchadnezzar bowed down on the floor and started worshiping Daniel. That's it. Daniel told him, don't make me a god out of me. So if Nebuchadnezzar decided that you're a god, Bahoka by crook, you're a god, and you're a deity, and don't you dare to say otherwise. Anyhow, right afterwards, Nebuchadnezzar started worrying about whether the Jews were becoming too big for the britches. So he said he should bring down the Jews, and the answer was to make a huge idol and call everybody, and he said everybody's supposed to bow down to the idol. So he said that everybody is supposed to go and bow down to the idol, except the only one who got an exception was Daniel, because over there was a dilemma. If Daniel is not going to bow down to the idol, and the king said whoever doesn't bow to the idol, they made a pit with fire, and the pit was burnt up for 7 days. And it said that anybody who doesn't bow to the idol is being thrown into the pit, except for Daniel, because if Daniel doesn't bow down, then he puts him in a problem, because he has to burn him. And then people said, you burnt your deity. So he says, okay, everybody's supposed to bow down to the idol except for Daniel. Daniel is exempt. And Daniel got a note from the Nebuchadnezzar, doesn't have to bow down. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were the friends of Daniel, and they were wearing these fancy royal clothing. And they refused to bow down. So the king told them, are you out of your minds? I said it, everybody's supposed to bow down to the idol. Why are you not bowing down to the idol? So they say flat out, when it comes, you are a king over us, you are a monarch. When it comes to laws, taxes, that stuff, that kind of stuff. Because when it comes to beliefs and religious practices, he said to them, so they said to him, says, you and a dog are equal. Now, as you can imagine, that's not the kind of thing you say to Nebuchadnezzar, if you know what's good for you. Okay, but so he said to them, are you kidding me? Because what do you think that Hashem is going to save you from me? From the fire? So they said, it doesn't matter. If he saves us, fine. If he doesn't save us, also fine. We're not going to do it. So he took a whole bunch of people, grabbed them, and throw the three of them into the pit. And as they threw into the pit, sparks of fire came out of the pit and burnt the people who threw them into it. And they were tied up with ropes, thrown into the pit. And a few days later, people came to the hut and said, the people walking in the fire in the pit. Well, they came over and he saw the 4 people. They threw 3 people down. There's 4 people down. So Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah come out. Says they came out. Not only they were not burned, their clothes were also not burned. There was no, smoke smell from their clothing. So the Gemara says something extremely curious. he says in Yan Kiddush Hashem, Chazal said, Maseches Ksubas, this Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah that sacrificed themselves to be thrown into the fire. I mean, when you have a pan in the oven and it's covered with aluminum foil, if you lift it up, the steam comes out and it burns the hand. And you go like, Here you have three people that willingly throw us into the flames, no problem. So which means you would say that they were impervious to any kind of coercion, any kind of pain, any kind of torture. Chazal says, if Hananiah and Azariah were beaten up instead of being thrown to the fire, they would have bowed down to the idol. Rabbincho says, it's not a must. Still, it is possible that there will be found someone, even if they torture him, no matter what they do. As they tell from the generations close to us of all kind of tortures that the Kedoshim suffered for Kiddush Hashem, it says, Asher. It's a very important nakuda. There are two things here. One of them, the Chazal says in the Gemara, that if you find yourself in difficulty and you see that you're not handling this well, and you see other people that are handling whatever difficult times they're experiencing, with great panache, and you go like, where am I? How do I compare to such people? And you can feel that, I'm not what I'm supposed to be. I'm not the way I'm supposed to be. You should know that different people can do different things. Different people can do different things. And not only that, the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants different things from different people. Rabbincho says that you should know that the truth is that you are able to withstand, for Kadosh Baruch Hu, you are able to withstand anything and go through anything. But if you find yourself that you're in a state or your nature is that you don't suffer well. You don't suffer well. You don't handle it well. It's okay. It's okay. The reason we said before that the reason why, the difference between, not the reason, but the difference between pain and suffering is that suffering is a pain for which you see no reason and no goal. You don't realize what the reason is. If a person knows what is the reason that he's suffering, the pain that he's going through, or the suffering he's going through, he says, if a person will, Rabbincho says in Torah Samechet, if a person looks at the ultimate reason of why we suffer in this world, which is the tachas olam haba. And everything that we go through, there's a kavanah to it. It cleanses us. It cleanses us. It's only when we forget what the purpose is, when we forget that there is a purpose, that's when we suffer. But when we know that everything we go through has a purpose, then we may feel pain. But it's a lot easier because you don't suffer. You feel pain, but you don't suffer. We said it quite a few times. The difference between pain and suffering is that suffering is you suffer from the fact that you have pain. The pain is not the suffering. The pain that you feel from the fact that you're having pain, the kind of the distaste that you feel about yourself for feeling the pain. You let yourself down, you feel pain. That is the thing, that's the cause of suffering. But if you know there's a reason, and this is for a great cause, either for your health or, kal v'chomer olam haba, it's not easier to take it. Ad kedei kach that Chazal said that dying al kiddush Hashem, even people that are burnt on the stake, they say is the biggest pleasure. You can get biggest pleasure alive because people are dying, but it's an immense pleasure. It's brought down in books. Immense. But the main nakuda that we have to bring out of here are two separate things. One of them is obviously that if a person is mechaven himself to the tachlis, to the goal of everything, he can go through anything. But let's take the first echatimtza. I look at myself, especially somebody who is close to the tzaddik emes. Immediately, our deficiencies and our defects, and the fact that we are running very short on all the qualities that we know that we need to have, and all the things that we need to do. We need to understand from here the two things. The reason why we feel that, the reason why we know that we are sick and that we are far and we are injured, is because we are close to the tzaddik emes. It's already a big madrega to know that you're sick, that you lack, that you are far from where you're supposed to be. Because a human psyche is built in such a way that the minute you give up on the ideas of being the very best, you will already create for yourself a state of mind that will make it so that, some of that thing is not that important. But look at what I do have, and I'm like, you don't look at it anymore. The minute, the reason why people learn in kollel, they're not matzliach. They're not matzliach because I mean, they fall off, they get off the koil, go back to work, whatever it is because there's something in them that is far from the truth. What is far from the truth is the fact that they believe that you need to be, the 10th percentile, top of all the people that are in the koil. You need to be, I don't know, Rabbi Yosha material. If you're not, what are you doing here? You go and get yourself, go to work. It means, listen, as is, I'm not a great success, so at least let me have a little nachas, a little fun from this world. When you get close to the tzaddik emes, it doesn't work that way. So that's point number one. If you are aware of your shortcomings, it means that you are close to the truth. This is the miracle of Hanukkah. Rabbeinu is the miracle of Rabbi Nachman in Breslov. The miracle of Rabbeinu and the miracle of Breslov is the miracle of Hanukkah. Rav Nosson says in Hilchos Bechas Hashach Halacha Daled, I heard Rabbi Weinberger speak about this, and Rav Nosson says that he talks about various things. One of the things he talks about is Bikkur Cholim. Bikkur Cholim is that when somebody is in the hospital, when a person, a Yid, gets out of his house, maybe cold outside, maybe not cold outside, you feel what you don't feel, he gets out of his house and he goes to the hospital, whatever hospital there is, whatever the place there is, maybe it's somebody's house, and the person who is there is all alone. The hardest thing to be is all alone. You have nobody. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. And suddenly a Yid comes over and he sits down with this sick person. And he's made upon him. How are you? How do you feel? I brought you tuna casserole. I brought you a cake. What can I do? Let me clean up a little bit, Maybe I'll wash the dishes. In the meantime, I'll make you some peppermint tea. In the meantime, I'll clean up a little bit. It mamish gives the sick person, gives him life. And then he sits with him and he drawing life to him. He's giving him life. I can speak, some intimate diburim, heart-to-heart diburim. Tremendous, tremendous. This is Hanukkah. Hanukkah is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to you. They say you have an appointment with the Melech. No, if you have to have an appointment with the Melech, we don't know what Melech is, but imagine you have an appointment with the king the way that they used to be. The Hohenzollerns and the Habsburgs, in Europe, the Tsar, or the Kaiser Bill, or whoever it is, that the kings of previous times. You're going to an audience with the king. Obviously, you're wearing the appropriate clothing, and you have to make it, arrangements with the protocol secretary, and you're writing down, making preparations for what it is that you're going to talk to the Melech, and so on and so on. But if one of the people of the king, one of the king's chabura, gets sick, and the king hears about it, so the king has rachmanas, and he does something which is out of protocol. He leaves his palace, he leaves the audience room, he gets off his throne, and he goes to that person's home, and he sits with him. He's married upon him to him. There's a story about, I don't know which king it was. I don't know if it's English king or Belgian king. I'm not sure who it was. That they called him the miracle maker. What was the miracle? He would go and visit people that had very contagious diseases. And he would visit them. And they recovered. Many of them recovered. Well, the answer is very simple. You know that they're in their beds being absolutely certain that nobody cares about them. And here comes the king. And the king, he doesn't pay heed to the fact, to the danger that he himself may contract whatever illness they have, in order to visit them and bestow compassion upon them. He gave them life. Yeah, it is a miracle. The miracle that kindness can do. That is why they say that Shechina lemaroisel shel the Shechina rests on the bedpost of somebody who is ill. So Kadosh Baruch Hu himself comes to visit him. The Melech himself comes to visit him. Rabbincho says in the suffrage to Sichos Haran that a person should always daven that Yisurim should not visit him, should not come upon him. Not to experience that suffering should not come upon him. He says, but those sufferings that already came, a person should accept it with great rejoicing. He says, because the Yisurim have within them a great present, something, he said, sweeter than honey. What is it? Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. Well, that sounds very nice in theory, but what does it mean? He says the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the suffering is your ability to withstand the suffering. Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you koyach to withstand it. To withstand whatever discomfort, whatever pain, whatever suffering you're going through. Because it's very common that when a person suffers especially physical pain or any kind of physical discomfort, emotional discomfort, the feeling is that there is no place to run. There's no escape. If a person was to accept that, I feel the way I feel. I feel the way I feel. That cannot be changed. It can change, but I will feel better, yeah. But the way that I feel right now, this cannot be changed. I feel it already. He says, you thank Kadosh Baruch Hu for it. I know that it's you. I know, that you are an all-merciful. And you love me. You love me like nobody else does. And I know that everything that happens to me comes from you. And I know that any pain that I feel, you feel. Because Baruch Hu feels that. Bechol tzaros lo tzar, all the straits that the Jew finds himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu finds him in the same kind of sorrow. And I know that you want nothing more but to make me feel good. And you feel as bad as I do and worse than me. So if Kodesh Baruch Hu is all merciful, everything comes from Kodesh Baruch Hu. And Kodesh Baruch Hu feels as bad as I do and worse than that. And Kodesh Baruch Hu wants me to feel all better and have all the things that I lack. And he still doesn't. He doesn't do it. That means there's tremendous benefit in how I feel. There's tremendous benefit. A couple of weeks ago, we spoke about the fact that there is, between one problem and the next, there's an oasis in the desert. Every once in a while, every place, there's an oasis. There's a archava. There's a space where you feel better. And you can remind yourself, everything Kodesh Baruch Hu does with me is for me. He says, L'maisa, you should have it, Kodesh Baruch Hu should take it away, that you shouldn't have it. But that which you already have, don't waste it. Don't waste it. And that coming down to the choila, to the person who is sick, the person who is suffering, is Rabbeinu Nachman. That's the concept of Hanukkah. Lahadlik ner Hanukkah is Ushetevas Nachal. Nachal leveh makor chokhmah. An ever-flowing brook of wisdom and a visitation of the Shekhinah itself. Anybody who's been to Uman on Rosh Hashanah and has seen what is going on in Pushkina with people buying these fake BB guns that shoot these plastic pellets, and they see that there's a flagship restaurant of Pushkina called Lev Bossa. I mean, how funny can you get? Lev Bossa, which talks about, a Jewish heart. They're taking to make a restaurant out of it. Because the tzaddik goes to the people who are the lowest and the furthest. It is me. And other people like me. There's a story that I think that Shlomo Carlebach said about one of the Amshinov Rebbe's. I don't think the Amshinov, I think it was before Amshinov. But he was their forefather. That in those days, it was very common for some Jews to live in places where there are no other Jews. There are no other Jews. They lived alone. Reb Nosson writes about them. It's called the village Jews that have, I don't know, a shtickle, they like do mostly Averis. Every once in a while, they do Psalm Mitzvah. Maybe Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, they go to town to practice in the minyan. And that man was a chassid of this Rebbe. Now, his daughter was all alone in the village. So she got mixed up with a goyish boyfriend. And she was taken to a covenant, to convert and then marry this guy. She can, I don't know, go and beat her up. I don't know what the story was. So her father went to his Rebbe and told him the story. So his Rebbe told him, where's this convent? So he told him, this is this town, whatever it is. So the Rebbe went to that convent. And he went outside. Obviously, he can't get in. So he bribed a goy or a gardener or whatever it is. And he bribed him to give the girl a settle from him that said, this is Rabbi so-and-so. And, she knew that her father was his chassid. Says, I'm waiting outside and I'm waiting for you. Come out to me. And a day passed and she didn't come out. So he slept there outside. Slept there, davened there, ate there. He waited outside 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. On the 4th day, she came out. She came out and he took her and they went away. When they went away, he told him, I want you to tell me the truth. Why did you come out? So she said, because I knew that you will not leave until I come out. You will not leave without me. You will not leave until I come out. The miracle of Rabbeinu Nachman is that he will not leave until we come out. He will not leave any one of us until we come out of whatever it is we need to come out of, and we get a tikkun shalom, B'ezrat Hashem. This is the miracle of Hanukkah. This is the miracle of Rabbeinu Nachman. It's a miracle of Breslov. You can see that there is no other tzaddik like Rabbeinu that brings, people like from the furthest reaches and puts that fire in their heart. Chabad is also very special about this. The Alter Rebbe, Sichos Haran, the old Chabad Rebbes. But that a person should understand that, you know how broken you feel about yourself, how puny. That particular halacha, is based on Torah Lamed 30, that says that the smallest a person is, the more he realizes he's far from Kadosh Baruch Hu. He needs a greater Rebbe. Like Am Yisrael and Mitzrayim were steeped in 49 gates of defilement. They needed a huge Malamed, a huge Rebbe, like Moshe Rabbeinu, to take them out. So as I said before, the fact that you even know that, and Rabbeinu says, the sicker the patient, the greater the doctor. The greater the doctor is necessary. When you know that you are not well spiritually, this is because the tzaddik is close to you. And he's shining to you two things. First of all, you know the truth about yourself. And second, you should know that it's okay. Not only is it okay, but this is the true avodas Hashem. When you're dealing, when you feel, when you realize that you ain't making it. You're not making it. You're not a success. Maybe you'll never succeed. You're not going to be Rebbe Yosef. You're not going to win the lottery. And the Tzaddik Emes is telling you, winning the lottery is not where it's at. Being a Rebbe Yosef is where it's at only for Rebbe Yosef. you need, the only way to become a Rebbe Yoshev is by dealing with who you are and accepting that this is where your work lies. This is your life's mission is, we'll learn in Sipur Maisius, tomorrow night, is that your life's mission is to agree to be a chigar and work on it. Work with you within your limitations and work on with your limitations and overcoming and doing what you need to do and compensating for that which you can't do. Not say, I can't believe, what can I do? But I'm not there, I can't do it. And therefore, something, let's just forget about the whole thing and do something else. No, that's not where it's at. This is not where it's at all. Rabbeinu Nachman comes to you where you are. Lamata Masoret Tfachim, lower than 10 Tfachim. Because Ma'olam Yoda Shechino Lamata Masoret Tfachim, yes. Rabbeinu is coming down, Lamata Masoret Tfachim. Aref Chanukah is Lamata Masoret Tfachim. Baruch Hashem, we're zeicher to be in Chanukah right now. We're in Chanukah. We're in Chanukah. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Hashem, Baruch Hashem should help us. We will be meeting with Hashem tomorrow night to learn Sipurei Maisius. So we will stop now. But the fact that you can't hack it means you're hacking it. Baruch Hashem, Ashrenu. Chanukah, everybody. And really, Kol Tov,